Okay, so on the TV side, you have Only Murders in the Building and Hacks. In movies, you have Everything Everywhere All at Once and Nomadland. So there's no absence of older protagonists in their 60s or 70s. But is Hollywood doing a good job portraying older characters? I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Teri Hart is here, Simonpillai is here, Anthony Q. Farrell is here. Hello, all of you.
Hello.
Hello.
It's nice to have you here. I'm delighted to talk about this. I've been meaning to talk about this for a little while, and where I want to start is with a show that has maybe like the oldest characters that we see, oldest actors that we see on television right now. So we have Only Murders in the Building. We have Martin Short, 75, Steve Martin, he's 80, and they're these true crime podcasters, turned real life sleuths. It's a delightful time. It's on its 5th season somehow, and I just want to play you guys a clip real quick.
It's tie-dye guy. Okay, we gotta follow them. I'm gonna get my car, you stay on them. All right, I'll wait. Wait, you have a car? Go after them on foot, and then call me when you know where they are, and then I'll swing by and pick you up. Okay, I'll wait. You pay for parking here?
Teri, honestly, like every time I watch an episode of Only Murders in the Building, immediately after the episode ends, I forget everything that happened, but I just have a delightful time watching the show. How does the show present its protagonist?
I mean, wasn't that the perfect clip for Only Murders in the Building? We've got Marty Short, and Steve Martin both being these kind of like charming but slightly bumbling, guys. Steve Martin's character had this one success as an actor, and he like holds on to it with a very, very tight grip. And but he's a bit neurotic, he's a bit cranky. And then you've got Martin Short, who is a not so successful Broadway director, and he's like very eccentric and wears silk scarves. And he also dated Meryl Streep in the show. I mean, is that in real life too? I'm not sure.
Now in real life also, yes.
What?
Yeah, it's a whole thing. Yes.
Give them. I love that for everybody.
Me too.
Anyway, Martin Short's character, he's always just coming up with, as we hear there, like a scheme or some crazy idea. And there's a bit of an odd couple dynamic to their relationship, but they are both still very stylish. I love how they're both wardrobed because they always look so turned out and wonderful. They have problems with technology. They have problems with like contemporary language. But in swoops Selena Gomez, and she gets to like roll her eyes, but really she's there to keep them up to speed on how the world is working today. And it is a delightful time that you'll never think about after watching it, as you said, Elamin.
Yeah, Selena Gomez is always like, you guys haven't heard of Twitter? And then they're like, no, what? And then they make a joke, and like that's the entire show. But there's something about this dynamic that to me, like, it feels familiar, and then I watch it, and then I completely forget about it afterwards. It's just a pleasant time to be around. Rad, when you think about the through lines of how older characters are presented on TV and film right now, what's sort of sticking out for you?
Well, look, I mean, first off, I just from that clip that you played, I noticed like, they're bumbling characters, but it doesn't seem like they're bumbling because of their age. Even if they were in their younger days, they look like they would have been bumbling, right? I think that's one part of it, like staying true to that these are characters fully rounded who happen to be a certain age. Yeah. And I think the trend you see is like, I mean, there is a bit of a meta layer to this, right? Because you have them performing people in the arts, the theater industry as actors who are trying to hold on to their glory days, hold on to a business that largely casts them out, right? Yeah. So that's what they're playing in the show. That's what that's kind of, you might imagine how they exist outside of the show. And a show like Only Murders in the Building kind of realizes those dreams for them. And it's funny how, it's about them figuring out how do they adapt? They're making a podcast, right? Yeah. So you get to like, so that I think that is the kind of recurring theme you might see through, Hacks, or even like this new movie, the Thursday Murder Clubs, right? Because what is that? That's a bunch of seniors in a senior home based on this best-selling novel series where like, we're living in a senior home, like society has, put us off into this little, like marginalized us to this corner, but we can still solve crimes. We can still, contribute to society. We got Helen Mirren and Pierce Brosnan, and they're showing us that they still got it. They could be sassy. There's a line in that movie where like Helen Mirren, her character is like, don't ever say the words bright-eyed, feisty old lady in my presence again. And it's like, don't reduce us to those tropes because of how old we are.
So Helen Mirren, 80 years old, Pierce Brosnan, 72 years old. That's Netflix's Thursday Murder Club.
Yeah.
That came out late August, I think. But also like Netflix had Grace and Frankie, Jane Fonda, 87 years old, Lily Tomlin, 86 years old. And also you mentioned Hacks, I think the best character on television right now, Gene Smart. Smart in Hacks, just won the Emmy for that. Jean Smart is 74 years old. These are all incredibly popular TV shows and film releases, Anthony, that like to me, like they are, the fact that they're centered on older characters is interesting. The fact that they have so much space is interesting. Do you think this is a case of Hollywood sort of making programming for an older target audience? Or is it just like, you know what, these characters are rich, let's just explore them, and age does not really sort of, is not the central reason why this character exists?
To paraphrase Abe Simpson, a little from column A, a little from column B. Another one of our wonderful aged actors. Thank you, Abe Simpson. Yeah. I do feel like it's a little bit of like, there are a lot more people who are that age who are watching TV these days, and especially you think about who's watching linear TV, right? Like who's watching TV where our advertisers are going to be like, oh, you need to reach these people, and they're going to be watching the show while it's on air. A lot of the times it's people who are over 55, over 60. They're watching the shows when they are actually being aired. Most other people are watching it on their phones, will stream it later, they'll catch it on YouTube, like whatever it is. So that's part of it. They want to reach the audience. But I think also there were so many, like the boom of TV and film and how much content was out there throughout the 90s and 2000s. There are a lot of people who are famous. There are a lot more people who were famous back then than there were in the 60s and 70s. And so all those people still around. They still have cachet. They still have followers. There's still people who want to see them on TV.
They can get work. Yeah.
And on top of that, one of the things I'll always be aware of is like with age comes wisdom and comes skill and so they're better at the job than they were before. Like I remember, like when I went to university and theater school, I played Uncle Vanya when I was 22 years old. Playing it now would be a different situation.
I think you'd be a little more worn with age.
A little bit more. I'd have a bit more to pull from, I think.
Yeah. And Uncle Vanya at 22 was like, I've given up on life.
I put some gray in the hair. I was like, yo, I'm old and I've been through stuff.
I don't buy it. I would not buy it.
Give me that part now. Let me tear it apart. So this is one of those things that it's a combination of a lot of different things. And I for one am very, very happy for it because as I get closer and closer to that age, I want to keep doing stuff. I want to keep working. And it's not just in the acting too. It's a lot of the writers, the people who are directing. People are doing it well into their 80s and 90s. So.
Yeah, no, first of all, I'll just say, I think you got at least another 20 years before you can credibly play Uncle Vanya. So you really went a little early on that front. There's also a new movie that I want to talk about. It's called Eleanor the Great. It stars one of the greats of all time, June Squibb, 95 years old. She plays Eleanor, who after losing her best friend, she decides to give her life a bit of a reset. And then she's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move to New York City.
Taking a trip, Eleanor? Moving home, actually. To New York, you? Nice knowing you, Clarice. Say goodbye to Melvin for me. We had such a wonderful time the other night. He's very strong.
You're so full of shit, Eleanor.
Yeah?
Okay, that's a bit of the great Eleanor. June Squibb playing Eleanor the Great. Okay, so this is also the directorial debut from Scarlett Johansson. Anthony, what stood out for you about the way that Eleanor the Great is being presented to you?
They were okay making her a terrible person.
Yes.
Right? Like, I think they were like, you know what? She's not just sweet old granny. She's a menace and she's a problem. And there were plenty of times I was like, I would not want to hang out with Eleanor because she's going to tell me some stuff I don't want to hear. And, so I think, I thought first of all, the performances were excellent, I thought. And I think, again, that goes back to what I was telling you before. Like, you just get better at emoting and
you've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, you can tell that the skills are impeccable, not just with June, but with a lot of the other people who were older than 65 who were in the movie. Like, they were just great performances everywhere. So I was a fan of that stuff, and yeah, I thought the movie was great, but I do feel like there are times when I was like, oh, man, like, Eleanor, what are you doing right now? I can't rock with you right now.
Rad, you felt like the tone of the movie was a bit too pandering and cutesy. Talk to me about that.
Well, remember how I said, like, from Thursday Murder Club, like Helen Mirren's, like, don't ever say bright-eyed, feisty old lady in my presence again. That's what June Squibb's playing, right? Like a bright-eyed, feisty old lady. And, and there is a trope in that, right? And there's a trope in that that I felt was, at a lot of times, it felt kind of disingenuous, and it felt like it was more for our amusement, where, June Squibb, she's She's spouting off all these snapbacks, these really quippy gags and stuff, and it felt like it was overwritten as a way to kind of show off what June Squibb could do, but didn't feel like it comes by honestly when it comes to the character that she's playing. And there's so much in this movie that I think is very disingenuous, right? And it just shows, I think, I guess the prematureness of like the writer and Scarlett Johansson's directing, that they think they could put this all out there. But it did feel like, I mean, this was a movie made for people our age to enjoy the renaissance of June Squibb and give her all of these fun lines that we could find adorable and then pat ourselves on the back for giving June Squibb that platform. Because it works so differently than her previous movie, which was really great, like Thelma, which is like, I think it was a couple years ago. Yeah. Wonderful movie where June Squibb is like playing one of those seniors who fell for one of those telephone scams where they got all their money because they said, your grandson's in prison and you got to send us money. Yeah. And then she goes out on the road with another friend to like track down the people who took her money. Like that came by its gags and the fun and the joy of Squibb's performance more honestly than I think this one did.
Where I disagree with Rad, Terry, is I never want to stop hearing June Squibb giving sort of like quips. Like that sounds like give me 5 hours of that. I'll watch every single one of them. But what do you make of what Rad is saying there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, Eleanor, played by June Squibb, is bright-eyed at all. I think that what they do there is they show this character as being very disenchanted with where she is in life. She's heartbroken that her best friend, really the only person that she wanted to spend time with, and that includes her own family, it has died. She has to go back and live with her rather estranged daughter and grandson. And I think that, she really is trying to find something that matters in her life. And she makes a decision that is very, very, very misguided. And she's not pleasant. Like I didn't see a lot of quips and a lot of like one-liners from Eleanor. I think that they played her memory loss really accurately and really well. I mean, I'm not saying Eleanor the Great as a movie completely worked for me. It didn't, but it has nothing to do with the portrayal of Eleanor as the protagonist and how they portrayed, a senior in that situation. I think that there was a lot of truth in her having to move from her home into her daughter's place and then looking for living in a facility that she doesn't really want to go to. I mean, I think all of that in the movie has a real truth to it.
My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. And today we are looking at the ways that older characters are showing up in film and TV right now. Teri Hart is here, Anthony Farrell is here, and Simonpillai is here. And obviously, we can't have this conversation without a little bit of this.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant.
Come on. The Golden Girls.
Those are my girls right there.
Dorothy and Blanche and Rose and Sophia. Like, Anthony, let's talk about what made them particularly worthy, because I know you are not old enough to watch the Blanche parts. I know you have to, put earmuffs on.
My parents weren't watching me watch TV. It was the 80s. I could do what I want.
Yeah, you're like, Blanche, teach me. Yes. Oh, what made the Golden Girls, an all-timer?
Well, I mean, it's a perfect combination of writing, acting, directing. Like, there was just the story. Like we'll rewatch these shows, even like recently rewatched them. And a lot of them still hit. They're still funny. They found. I tell people when they're making ensemble comedies, make a Venn diagram of your characters, find out where they overlap so that you can create kinship with some things and conflict with other things. These four women overlap in all the perfect ways because there's kinship with some of them. There's a lot of conflict. I'll never not hear Dorothy call her mom a withered old Sicilian monkey. Like, it is always one of my favorite things. It's just, there's so many, and there was just, anytime I meet someone who worked on that show, like I remember I worked with Kent Zbornak, who like Dorothy's last name was like, his last name was the inspiration for Dorothy Zbornak, and I was like, Kent, you're a golden god to me. I will follow you wherever you go, sir. Yeah. Tell me more about your time working with the women.
That's how you start speaking every time you start talking about Golden Girls.
Anytime I see it, yes, Golden Girls, Dorothy and Blanche, and all of they. It's so for me, it's like it. And I think the other thing to say about this is like it regardless of who you were, where you were from, what age you were, you found them interesting and engaging and comical, and they just worked with everybody. So I think I could talk about them for like, I could do a full 3-hour lecture on each episode of the Golden Girls, but I'm gonna leave
now. I want to abandon the rest of the show and go like, do that. But Teri, talk to me about like the endurance of the Golden Girls, because I think like they do keep being sort of like a strong reference point of how age is portrayed, but also just like what good TV looks like.
Yeah, and also there's something really aspirational about these 4 women coming together at this stage in their life. Of course, Sophia was Dorothy's mom, as you've mentioned, but other than that, like one family tie, they're all just friends. One of them is divorced, the other 3 are widowed, leaning into the idea that, women oftentimes, certainly then, became widowed more frequently than men did. And, the characters in the show were supposed to be kind of in their early to mid 50s. Sophia was in her 80s, and they came together and they formed this kind of mutually beneficial living arrangement with all those barbs that Anthony mentioned and all those, all that conflict. Yeah. But really, they did support each other. And I think most women have had the conversation with their girlfriends that they'd be up for finding their Golden Girl squad. If life permitted it, what 4 of us are going to come together and live together at that. And I think that idea has not only stood the test of time, but actually grown in popularity. And the Golden Girls are the reference for that. The Golden Girls are, and like Sex and the City, which character are you? We've all done it with the Golden Girls too, 100%. And I love it. I think that they did not treat these women like they were invisible.
No, 100%. Like, I think like, that's the thing that makes it work is when people talk about Golden Girls, they talk about it with this reverence of it showed us, like, that's the foundation. That's the foundation of just like what TV should feel like, but also how you can talk about aging in a slightly different way. I will say, Rad, there is this conversation about like people look different now. People like aging looks different now than it did 20, 30, 40 years ago. Then there's this meme that I've seen with 2 side-by-side photos. I'm going to show you this meme. And one is the actor Paul Rudd, who people know from Ant-Man and so many other movies, but also like that Paul Rudd, like there's this meme, the idea like he just doesn't age. No matter what, he looks exactly this. He's looked the same for like 25 years. Then the other actor is Wilford Brimley, and they are both allegedly 50. That's a photo right there. They're both allegedly 52 years old when this photo was taken, but Paul Rudd looks way, way younger than Wilford Brimley. And so like the meme itself seems to be making the statement of like, hey, how aging looks like has changed a lot. What do you make of this sentiment? Does that feel true to you?
I mean, that is like the worst sample set.
Okay,
right
yeah,
there.
that's true. That is
like,
true. It's
Paul
unfair.
Rudd drinks unicorn blood.
He does.
We don't like, or he's part of the Illuminati, and I don't know what it is that makes him look so young. Yeah,
something
exactly.
Something. Vampire blood.
He's eating baby hearts for sure.
And Wilford Rudd. How do you say his name?
Brimley.
Is it Brimley or Brimley?
Okay,
Brimley. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Been corrected.
So he's like obviously someone who does not. He was playing like a 70-year-old in that movie, and then you get these instances where there's certain actors who look older than they are and they could play older roles. I mean, just think of Kim's Convenience, Paul Sun-Hyung Lee. Like the guy's in his late 30s when he starts playing the Appa character on stage, right?
That's true.
So like you have those cases. So that's a terrible sample set. Not to say that there's not some truth to what you're saying in the sense that maybe again, like actors, because of skincare treatments nowadays and diets nowadays and whatnot, they're looking a little younger. But I also think there's a bit of like, I don't know, short-term memory, like the memories are short when it comes to kind of our actors over the years. Because, I mean, Robert Redford was like 50 when he made Out of Africa. And if you look at what Robert Redford looked like in Out of Africa, the man looked pretty. No, he didn't look 50. He looked like, he was handsome. Yeah. So I think like there's always...
Hey, 50-year-olds are still handsome.
No, but what I'm saying is like he didn't... I mean, I think if you looked at like what they're calling now, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe Halle Berry and I can't believe Keanu Reeves and I can't believe Brad Pitt and things look like this. Like, and DiCaprio like are looking like this at 50. It's like, yeah, but that's what 50-year-olds like Marlon Brando and Robert Redford looked like back then. You know?
100%.
As someone who has looked old most of his life, I take offense to this whole
someone who played Uncle Vanya at 22 years old.
Exactly. Uncle Vanya. My black cracked early. And then I'm catching up to it now. I think I've looked 40 since I was 20, but now that I'm 48, I still look 40. So I'm catching up on the back end.
Okay, but listen, before we go, we've talked a bunch about the ways that older characters are represented on TV and in movies. Anthony, do you see these products, do you see like these shows or these movies kind of maybe falling short anywhere?
It's so hard to say because you would need unlimited amount of TV shows and movies to tell all the stories that people of that age are dealing with. And we find the same thing with representation with a lot of with people of color and with people who are non-binary and people who are in queer community. There's a lot. No one is a monolith, so there's a lot of opportunities.
Can't have one show do that. You can't
have one. So we just need more shows to tell all these stories. So yeah, we're falling short, but I think that's just naturally the way it is until we can figure out a way to make a lot more things.
That's always the case. I will have to say, Teri, that like to me, one of the big conversations that we keep having about older people is like the loneliness of aging. You know, the loneliness that comes with aging. And like I have a friend who like for him, that's his big focus in life. Like he started a charity where he connects like younger people with older people just so that like there's some companionship. And like it's actually like the most wonderful thing. Like younger people who like call a senior person on the phone once a week and they start that kind of friendship. It's like the loveliest thing in the world. But I keep looking for that loneliness represented somewhere. You know, in the media that we watch. I guess it's a little bit in the Ted Danson show where he plays an older man who goes to a retirement home. And
Man
then,
with the Plan?
Man on the Inside.
Man on the Inside.
That's the one.
But I don't really see it in a lot of other places. Where do you think we might be falling short?
I mean, I think really what we need to recognize is that ageism is real, right? And older people are rarely thought of as sexy or even particularly interesting. And, you know, I used the invisibility term when we were talking about the Golden Girls. And I think that society does do that. And a lot of the things, you know, if we're talking about the loneliness epidemic with seniors, I mean, that's not happy. You know, you were talking about, you know, Only Murders in the Building and, you know, you have a delightful time watching it and then you don't think about it. People do still watch entertainment to escape. And I think that doing a show about loneliness and seniors, as though it's, you know, although it's very, very real, might not be the most uplifting thing. However, I do think that one of the reasons we are seeing more focus on older folks is because their Gen X and older millennial kids are experiencing having older parents and they're living longer. People are living really, really well into like their 90s. You know, Rad mentioned Thelma starring June Squibb. That was inspired by the filmmaker's own grandma. And then you just mentioned The Man on the Inside. Yeah. That was inspired by a documentary about a Chilean man who was hired to be a private investigator. So there are rich stories about, you know, seniors out there. I think we have to want to find them. You have to want to tell them. And I think we're going to be getting more and more of them. You know, ultimately, sometimes entertainment blazes a trail and sometimes it's a reflection. And I think movies and TV right now are reflecting aging rather than shedding anything new. And I do hope that that shifts.
Yeah, I was gonna. The reason I'm asking you this is because you this week you just announced that you're launching a new podcast, and it's about caretaking. It's about caretaking of older adults, and like for you, this is something that that's really close to you, but also at the same time, is that a thing that's being represented in the media that we see? Because that's also not fun. That's also not Only Murders in the Building kind of fun.
But what it is, and what I'm really trying to do with the Heart of It All, the podcast, is talk about having the conversations so that when we need them, they're there for us. And caregiving looks so different in so many ways. You can be caregiving in a really active way for somebody, but you can also be caregiving by calling the seniors in your life. As you just mentioned, your friend is encouraging with his charity. You can be caregiving by, like, when you go and visit your parents or aunt or uncle, make sure you bring some extra food and throw it in the freezer for them. There's all kinds of ways we can participate in seniors' lives so that we understand what it looks like for them to live wonderfully. And that's what we want, right? We want the seniors in our life to live wonderfully. We want them to be like Steve Martin and Martin Short and the Golden Girls and all the rest of it. Obviously, things can go in another direction and we need to be more active in our caregiving. Yeah. But like, it takes a long time to get there, and we're living long and we're living well. So let's participate.
I want to pivot in just a moment to talk about something entirely different, which is like this whole tariff story with the United States. But before I get there, Rad, I want to give you a moment to talk about this idea of, okay, we have more representation of older protagonists, but maybe we're not covering all our bases. Where are we falling short?
Well, I mean, immediately I'm thinking of like, it's been at least like a decade since we've had these kind of like older senior dramas where people are like kind of kind of going back on their life and weighing their regrets. And I'm thinking of movies like Broken Flowers or About Schmidt, and Nebraska being kind of the last one I remember.
June Squibb joint.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Exactly. But then immediately, even at your talking, as you guys are talking, it's like, I miss the sexy seniors and the ones that are having rom-coms, like the Nancy Meyers movies. Like something's got to give and it's complicated. Like why I can't remember. I feel like those are the last times I've seen, like, kind of, again, there's just rom-coms with seniors that come by their humor and their emotions honestly.
Yeah. I when you say Nancy Meyers movies, the first thing that pops to mind actually is The Intern, which is like a relatively recent,
actually really good too.
Great film starring Robert De Niro as a man who goes back to work and starts being an intern for Anne Hathaway at the age of Robert De Niro's age. Whatever Robert De Niro's age.
106.
That's exactly correct.
Robert De Niro.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I watch The Intern way too regularly. Like we're talking like
love that
maybe
for you.
once a month. I'm watching The Intern. Shout out The Intern.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to shift and talk about the story with the United States. The United States is grappling with this whole idea of the government shutdown. Donald Trump's administration has been continuing on this tariff bent unabated. That is not, you have not sort of ceded ground on any of this. And I want to talk about this. This is a bit of a hard pivot here, but earlier this week, Trump said that the United States is going to impose a 100% tariff on movies made outside the United States. It's not clear how that tariff is going to be implemented. Anthony, you are laughing before I even finish the question. But you were on this podcast talking about, the uncertainty for people working in film and TV earlier this summer. What is your reaction to this idea that, like, hey, it's ostensibly here? This moment is here.
I really do think we have to stop reacting to this person.
All right.
That's my first thing. What I'll do is I'll talk about, because I lived in LA for 13 years. I'm a dual citizen. I still pay taxes in California. I think this is a California issue. A lot of friends who are having to leave that state because work has dried up. A lot of studios are empty down there. It is a big situation.
Right.
But before the world started taking work from California, other states started taking work from California. New Mexico and Georgia and all those other places, they started building up their tax credits and started figuring out a way to lure people away from California to make shows there. It's a combination of a couple of things. It's with tax credits not being more readily available in other places, but it's also a situation where these billionaires are telling themselves, if I only made $5 billion this year, I have to make $6 billion next year. If you stop this whole thing where the profits have to keep on increasing, you can actually spend the money on the things that you need to spend the money on, which is like making great content and keeping the work where you want to keep the work. You can do that with the money you have, but you've told yourself, if my profit doesn't increase, then I'm a failure. So Wall Street's, you gotta talk to Wall Street about this.
Q, I'm going to push you on this a little bit because it's one thing to sort of
Try me,
speculate.
son.
I'm going to do it because it's one thing to speculate about a policy coming. It's another thing for it to be kind of like it's here at your door. As we now live in a world where that's the case. We don't know how it's going to be implemented, but we now live in a world where
he
that
doesn't
is
know
the
how
case.
it's going to be. Like, what is he going to tariff?
Okay, that's fair.
He's going to tariff what? Like, you're going to tariff the tickets to the movies? You're going to tariff the people? Like, he found a word that sounds cool to him, and he is going to say it over and over again. He's just going to attach no, you know what? We're going to tariff you -1 billion points. What? How do you respond to like,
it? Doesn't feel real to you.
It doesn't feel real at all because he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's saying words and hoping that his administration will figure it out for him and then implement something. But what are you going to tariff? What's the plan? Like, there's no plan. What has to happen is they've got to figure out a way to bring work back to California, not just by stopping people from going other places, but by figuring out a way to make it more palatable and more just, it's easier to make shows and movies in California, which is where I think that's really where the big problem is. But don't they have like Who are the old guys helping him out? Isn't what's his face? Isn't Angelina Jolie's dad helping him with that?
He is. That is true. He's one of
John
his advisors.
Voight.
Papa Jolie.
John Voight and Sylvester Stallone. Those are really sort of like the advisory for Donald Trump in terms of like how to get Hollywood.
Sylvester Stallone,
going
another
again.
old actor. We didn't talk about Expendables 4, but that's another movie that we should be.
The whole premise of that movie is, hey, we're a little bit past our expiry date. Teri, I got like a minute left here. Do you have any reaction to this idea of like, hey, we make a lot of movies here? Trump is saying those are going to be, they're going to be tariffed. No one knows what that means. Do you have any reaction to this story?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I agree with a lot of what Anthony's saying here. Like he did, and this is a quote, Trump did not specify when or how the tariff could be enacted. And I think that is the noteworthy part of this, right? I mean, he frequently says things without a plan for execution. Like who would and who would be tariffed? Like, would it be the exhibitors, producers, TV stations, streamers? Like, who is he putting that tariff on? And he's kind of just been on this tariff tirade. And we do need to be aware, of how much service production is a huge part of the industry here in Canada, specifically in Toronto and Vancouver. And it's a huge employer for us. But we do need to be level-headed about these things and practical in how difficult it would be to tariff a service. This is not a product. This is not something that you can say, this part was here. We've heard the issue about a car going back and forth over the Canadian and American border 18 times before it's made. It's not dissimilar from a movie or a television show. There are so many different parts of it, and it's a service. It's not a tangible thing. So I don't know how it's possible for him to be able to make this happen.
You guys are filled with wisdom well beyond your ages. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thanks, guys.
By the way, it's us. We're the 4 in the Golden Girls. Start making the plan now because we're all moving in together.
One of us is walking around with a cane.
I have a broker. It does not matter. Rad Simonpillai, once again, a menace and also a freelance film critic in Toronto. You can find his work at the Globe and Mail, on CTV, and right here on Commotion. Anthony Q. Farrell is a screenwriter and showrunner. He was in Toronto. And Teri Hart is an entertainment reporter with Super Channel in Toronto. Her new podcast on caretaking is called The Heart of It All. The first episode for that drops October 7th. In the meantime, my name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. We'll see you tomorrow.